Okay, hello everyone. This is CounterYolo, bringing you another video in Star Trek Online. And then today we're going to be talking about the 2021 anniversary bundle in Star Trek Online, or what I like to call just the 11th anniversary bundle, because last year was the 10th anniversary. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 new legendary starships in this bundle, with its comparisons versus comparable fleet starships and other comparable starships. The old and new starship traits in this bundle, the old consoles, and whether or not you should get this bundle. If you see the list there, you'll probably already know what my opinion is on the bundle in general. A lot of us in the community have the exact same sentiment. Anyway, feel free to see the time links in the description or the time bar at the bottom of this video. And there will be a TLDW at the end of the video too, but it is going to be fairly basic, frankly. When it comes to this bundle, we do have 4 legendary starships. There's also 2 C-Store coupons, as well as a bunch of, well, a couple of Tier 6X upgrades, and a bunch of other random stuff. If you are curious about it, there are a lot of people who have gone into detail already about the worth of a lot of these different items. Many of them are character-only stuff, and so for me, as someone who really views the legendary bundles as something that the valuable parts of them being the account unlock only aspects, I'm only going to be focusing on those account unlock aspects only in this video. That does mean I'm going to be undervaluing this bundle, but you know, it is what it is. When it comes to legendary starships, just like last year when they were introduced, they have full endgame stats like previous mega bundle starships, which means there will not be fleet variants of these ships. They will already have their full endgame stats on them, full base stats, full consoles, and everything. So you can easily put a Tier 6X token on these things, and you will have their most powerful form on them. They will also have a brand new skin, unlike any other previous version, and they'll include all Starship Tracer consoles of previous versions. However, if Crypto releases a new version with a new skin beyond these ships, these legendary ships will not receive any new traits or consoles beyond, or stuff that has been released after this bundle. So yeah. Also that's something that's new in this bundle, because with the anniversary, with the KDF recruitment event, if you get any pure KDF captain to level 65, you can fly any starship in the game on any captain. When you buy this bundle, you don't have to worry about that. You basically buy the C-Store unlock basically in the C-Store with this bundle. Unfortunately, you don't get any refunds or anything if you got a KDF to 65 ever or bought it, but you know, it is what it is. They basically did that to add an extra 1,000 Zen to the price of the bundle, so that's 25 Zen instead of 24,000 Zen. In terms of Starship Comparisons, keep in mind, during the process of releasing these starships, Cryptic has already changed the stats of several of these starships. They've also improved the base stuff on radar flanking. Basically, old improved radar flanking is now the bonus of what regular radar flanking is, and improved radar flanking with up to 40% extra bonus damage, and other stuff has been changed too. I imagine there might be other things that changes in the future. Because of this, unlike other videos, there is a decent chance that some of these stats in this video are going to be wrong by the time this bundle comes out, or some of the stats in these ships might actually change after the bundle comes out. That is definitely a possibility. There weren't that many stat changes with the last anniversary bundle, but I think that more came down to the fact that there were 10 ships in the last bundle, and therefore when they saw some of the feedback that we were disappointed about, they basically compensated by making the next ships even better than the ones that we were complaining about, so that we basically stopped complaining about those older ships. With that right out of the way, the first one that they announced was the Legendary Burrell. It is a Commander Pilot's Raider. Keep in mind, this does only have just 12 bridge officer abilities instead of the standard 13 that regular Tier 6 starships have. This is because every single Raider in the game that has Commander Universal and no other Commander seats will lose 1 bridge officer ability. This is expected and is standard, so this is not something to be worried about. It's something that is standard inside of the game already. What is a little disappointing with this starship is that it still has its standard 4 forward weapons and 2 rear weapons along with its experimental. Most of us were hoping that this ship would get 5 forward weapons, especially considering that the Alliance Raider that came out with the recent event was a 5 forward weapon Raider, and it's an event starship with an enhanced battle cloak and improved Raider flanking. A lot of us were looking at this ship and we're like, we think that the Alliance Raider is better than this one. Are you going to do something about it? And they decided to buff Raider flanking instead of buffing the ship directly. The new trait deadly appearances, it sounds okay for a cloaking build. Whether it's okay or not is up to you. The old Starship trait, Withering Barrage, yes, it is a meta cannon scatter volley trait. Here's the problem though. This isn't the first time that we've gotten this Starship trait available to us in the past. There are 3 regular C-Store Tier 6 starships. There are 2 other legendary starships already, one from an old 10th anniversary bundle, one from the legendary to list. There are 2 starter packs that have the Within Barrage trait in it. And we have the event, and we have the Klingon recruitment event Bird of Prey that also has Withering Barrage alongside this ship. So guess what? If I counted right, there's like 9 different places in the game right now that you can get this Starship trait. So yes, this is a good Starship trait. This old Starship trait is not why you should be getting this bundle. I'm just throwing that out there just in case you all are wondering. And with Tier 6X added to this ship, you get an extra universal console. Comparing to the old ships, again, there isn't a ton of variation between the Legendary Burrell and the Fleet Burrell, except for the fact that the Lieutenant Commander Pilot becomes Commander Pilot, and you get Lieutenant Commander Intel, which is nice, and also an extra tactical console. So there are some decent improvements, not a ton. It would have been more impactful to get an extra forward weapon. In the same way that the legendary Defiant got an extra weapon and lost its experimental. Many captains in the game are basically saying that the Fleet Pilot Bird of Prey is just a better starship. It's got a higher hull, and true, it doesn't have the enhanced battle cloak, but it's got at least a battle cloak and Raider flanking, and also has 5 tactical consoles. You just don't have Commander Int. You just don't have any Intel seating on it. But it is a more maneuverable, slightly less able to turn starship. And with the new skin, it actually does look okay versus the skin that I didn't like previously on it. Also keep in mind, the other C-Store Raiders also don't have 5 forward weapons. This is going to be a theme that you see. Basically, all the Raiders that aren't from the exchange, so like if you're looking at a Raider that's not a low-buy lockbox or promo starship, they're basically not going to have 5 forward weapons. And I think this is the exact reason why Cryptic decided to not have the Legendary Burrell get 5 forward weapons as a Raider. They're like, I guess for some reason 5 forward weapons is too OP for a count unlock starship to have. And yet an event starship is allowed to have 5 forward weapons. Slightly weird to me, but I guess it is what it is. The Gemini Vanguard Raider from the C-Store is pretty much just the Burrell, but with slightly different stats and the Wingman mechanic instead of an enhanced battle cloak. Pretty much the exact same otherwise. There's also the 31st Century Orbital Raider. Honestly, the reason why you get the Raider generally is to complete the 3-pack of the 31st Century sets. You can put the haste console from that Raider on your Dreadnought Cruiser as a tank. That's generally why you pick that ship. But it's also been a classic for PvP as well, because of its maneuverability and commander temper operative and very flexible seating. And a battle cloak. In terms of birds of prey, a lot of us consider the D4X basically the one that you typically should be choosing. It's extremely maneuverable, commander pilot. Apparently the wiki changed it to Commander Universal, so I have changed it here too. I don't actually own this ship. I've heard tons of good things about this ship, and it has a high impulse, so it is very competitive in terms of its raw speed inside of the game. Again, if they made the Burrell a 5-1, instead of 4.2, it could be competing potentially with the Lockbox D4X. I don't really feel it does personally because the D4X is just so much faster than the Burrow would ever be. So that's just me. If you want to be super technical, there is technically one C-Store Starship that does have 5 forward weapons and has Raider flanking, and that's the Mirador Theta Heavy Raider. You do have to buy the Picard bundle to get that Raider, though, account unlocked for your account. And that's a lot of Zen. So that's up to you. That's up to you whether you think if that actually counts or not, or if you think mods market types of things counts. That's up to you. Again, the Alliance Raider is a very noteworthy starship. It's got improved Raider flanking and an enhanced battle cloak. And it's got Lieutenant Commander command, so it actually can use the enhanced battle cloak really well. Its trait's actually pretty nice as well for torpedo builds. Not super maneuverable versus this one, but it's a bit more durable than the Burrow. If you don't care about a cloak, the Mopkey Raider is a pretty nice one too. Its commander tackles a Merc Worker with a bunch of universal seating alongside it. So even though it doesn't have the full damage potential of the Merc Worker Juggernaut, because of its flexible seating, it is a much easier, more preferred experimental platform for a lot of DPS captains for dual cannon builds. A lot of those captains will use the Monkey Raider instead of the Valor Juggernaut. And that's basically it for the Raiders. Now let's go on to the Legendary Excelsior. This is one of them that the stats changed. I might not have catched all the stat changes here. Feel free to see in the comments if I missed something on this. For Bridge Officer, Senior Commander Rick Worker, Lieutenant Commander Pilot. So it's a smidget different than the Legendary Sovereign from the 10th Anniversary Bundle, but not by much. Really, the big differences here is that it's got a smidget lower hull for a smidget higher shields. My general rules for tanking generally is that if you have at least a 1.1 shield, your shields can actually be reliable for survival. If it's any lower than that, then don't rely upon your shields at all for survival and just pretend that they don't exist. Just rely upon hull tanking for your survival. So, in that sense, the Excelsior has a slight edge there as well. Tier 6X gives you an extra universal console for 6 tactical consoles for this ship. Keep in mind, the old stuff is pretty garbage for this ship, and they actually added a second Starship trait here, Target That Explosion. That's not from an Excelsior, simply because they were going to be short on Starship traits because the vor'cha and the Ambassador have the exact same Starship trait and console. So they were like, we need 4 old Starship traits. Let's add an Excelsior trait alongside them. So we have 4. The new trait, that's a big ship. It's pretty much going to be an account unlock version of Honored Dead if the stacks are actually good. We'll see when this thing comes out whether it's actually good or not. Yeah, we'll see. When it comes to comparisons, the Fleet Excelsior, Legendary Excelsior actually are pretty comparable in terms of their base stats here. Of course, it's the Fleet Excelsior is command seating, while the Legendary one is Merc Worker Pilot. So if you're going for a torp build, I still think the Fleet Excelsior is going to be better than the Legendary Excelsior for that type of thing. But for energy-based builds, like whether you're going to use exceed rate limits or if you're going to do a broadsiding build like Fire Will or Beam Overload, Legendary Excelsior is going to have a bit of an edge there. Keep in mind, though, I'm listening to Silvan Silic here because if you look at the base stats, the Silvan Silic is pretty comparable in terms of base stats, but you get dual cannons, 2 hangar bays, and a battle cloak. And if you actually put the ships side by side inside the game, they have very similar ship profiles too. And the Silvan Silic is a 5-3 ship instead of 4-4. I've said many times in the game the Silvan Silic is one of the best starships in the entire game, and it's a fleet starship. So just gonna throw that out there for you all. Now for this ship versus other Merc Worker ships, the Sea-Star Klothos is a fantastic ship. It's got better base stats. It's a smidget less for its turning, but it's got better impulse and inertia. It doesn't have pilot seating, but you still have 6 potential tactical consoles for the ship, and you got a cloak. And if you really care about other stuff, the Legendary Sovereign is pretty comparable to this ship too. If you want to argue that the Legendary Excelsior is a smidget better, so be it. But the Legendary Sovereign is from a bundle that has 10 starships in it, and it's very comparable in price to what this bundle is. So I don't really feel that the Excelsior has enough of an edge over the Sovereign to really just say that you should choose that you should buy this bundle for the Excelsior. I don't really feel that's the case. If you have the 10th anniversary bundle, I think the Sovereign is just fine. That's just my opinion on it. And of course, if you're going to use dual cannons, there's also other options in the game as well to have battle cloaks too. Now, going to the Legendary vor'cha, this is the one really good starship. And before we even get to the stats, I need to point this out. The Camarag and the vor'cha are 2 of the visual options with the Legendary vor'cha. This is a really big deal. This is a really, really big deal because previously the vor'cha skins and the Camarag skins were not interchangeable. Apparently now they are, unless the screenshots here are wrong. I haven't heard Kale say anything about these being wrong. Basically, what Cryptic is saying is, guess what? The Legendary vor'cha is also a Legendary Camarag battlecruiser, which is cool. I wish that they did that with the Ambassador, and I'm going to rant on that later. But for the vor'cha, this is really, really cool. Not only are you getting a new skin for this, but you're able to use the Camarag skins too with the Legendary vor'cha. Super, super cool. Really, really excited about that. As for this ship itself, it is a 5-3 starship, so that's better than the 4-4 of the other variants. Still has reasonable hull and shields and maneuverability. Commander Command, Lieutenant Miracle Worker is fine. It does have a downside of Ensign Science, which is a smidge of a downside versus the old variants, just because the old variants didn't have any Force Science seats on it, while this ship does. Not by much, though. I mean, if you're going to do a DPS build and you needed a science seat, you probably would want it to be Ensign Science anyway. But for tank builds, it's nice to be able to have the option for just to have a Lieutenant Science. You can use Photonic Officer with like the improved Photonic Officer trait, so you don't have to do an Oxtabat build. Just saying. Of course, there's also other options to do cool ones besides Photonic Officer or Oxtabat. But for most people, that's not really going to be a realistic option because you need the Borg officers to do so. When it comes to the old stuff, History War, remember, is a best in slot tanking trait inside the game, and the Temporal Trajectory Shifter is a budget haste console. So those are great options there. This ship also has a battle cloak and your inspiration mechanic stuff on it. The new trait, A Good Day to Die, is another healing trait inside the game. If you need a healing trait, I hope it's not terrible. It's gonna need, it stacks a lot, so it's gotta have some decent good stuff per stack for it to be worthwhile. In the trait section, I will go into detail as to what I think it needs to be for it to be competitive with other healing traits inside the game. As for the other comparisons, of course, the Fleet vor'cha, or Fleet Vor'cha, as we've called it previously, didn't have any Force Science seating. So as a tank captain, you can make a Lieutenant Commander Science, an Ensign Engineer, and Ensign Tactical, or you can make an Ensign Science, a Lieutenant Commander Engineer, or Lieutenant Commander Tactical. This ship could do any of that just fine. The new vor'cha, you're forcing a science seat on the ship, so it's got a little bit less flexibility there, but it is more reminiscent of, say, the Miracle Worker D7. Just that you're flipping command and Miracle Worker there, and no hangar base. So there is definitely that going, and that reminiscent thing feel going with it with the ship too. So there is definitely that. And of course, I'm showing the Camarag Tier 5X because that's the highest thing that we have with that ship until right now. If you want Lieutenant Commander Science on this ship, you still can. Then you have the Lieutenant Universal, which you can make whatever you feel you need it to be too. If you make the Lieutenant Commander Universal Science, you're probably gonna make the Lieutenant Tactical. Just gonna throw that out there. When it comes to other ships, most other Commander Command starships are 4 weapons in the front, 4 weapons in the rear. It's actually not too common to find starships with 5 weapons in the front that are Commander Command. There are decent amount of Lieutenant Commander Command starships that are 5-3, but not very many that are Commander Command starships. Like the Suman Silk, for instance, which is a 2-hanger bow cloaking starship, is only a Lieutenant Commander Command starship. So keep that in mind. If for similar stats, I mean, these things are similar in base stats, besides the fact they are 4-4 starships. So if you're going for a broadsiding build, these ships are comparable. If you're going to do a dual cannon build, the vor'cha is still superior. And in fact, for other starships, if you're wanting to go down to Lieutenant Commander Command, the Kopesh from the C-Store has some similar things here too. The Legendary Walker also has some similarities too, even though it has much less flexibility in its seating and less desirable seating for its secondary specialist seat. For a tanking perspective, for a 5-3 ship, it's similar, but again, there are better tanking ships in the game besides having a battlecruiser that's 5-3. Really, the truest comparison to the vor'cha is actually the Section 31 Heavy Command battlecruiser. The differences here is that the big differences is that it's Ensign Science instead of Ensign Engineering, and the vor'cha gets a KDF look instead of Federation look, a battle cloak instead of a standard cloak of the Section 31 ship, and the Section 31 ship has swarm mode, while the Legendary vor'cha does not, and doesn't have any hangar bays. So that's really the big differences here. Otherwise, they're very, very comparable, very, very similar. And a lot of the DPS community really likes to have the Section 31 battlecruiser. So the fact that you have the potential to get an account unlock alternative to that ship in the game, albeit it's a KDF look instead of Federation look, which is a downside for some people, I think it's still a great deal. Of course, if you want to go for a full 5-3 just tanky starship, I think the Lockbox Juggernaut is still a Lockbox Liberate Board Juggernaut is still a great option too. Just gonna throw that out there as well. And of course, if you want a tank with 2 hangar bays, I think both of those flight deck carriers are fantastic options too. Promo D7 as well as the Legendary Constitution Temporal Flight Deck carrier are fantastic options too. Thanks to the support frigates that came out during last fall with those support carriers. Now to the last and certainly least impressive starship of the 4 is the Legendary Ambassador, which is not only disappointing because it's the exact same specialist seat, but because nothing really changed too much with this starship. Its trading console is the exact same as what's on the vor'cha, and it didn't get any new trader console additionally like the Enterprise B in compensation. So that kind of sucks on this ship. The Horatio skin isn't super impressive. I mean, to be honest, the Horatio skin reminds me of the Guardian skins. And the Guardian skins aren't one of the skins in this. And so I'm like, why did you add a new skin that reminds me of the Guardian skins and yet you didn't include the Guardian skins in this? That's odd. And for those of you that missed it on the S2 Wiki, in the description of the Guardian Cruiser, the design of the Guardian class is strongly reminiscent of the production concept art of the Ambassador class, as well as a sculpture of the USS Enterprise C, seen on the wall of the Enterprise D's briefing room in Star Trek The Next Generation. So yes, this is the Guardian Cruiser is an Enterprise C, just like the Yamaguchi and the Rendra are also Enterprise Cs effectively. They're different variants of the Ambassador class available inside the game. And as part of the Legendary Bundle, they decided that the Guardian wasn't worthy to be added as extra skins for kit badges alongside the Ambassador. I don't really get it. And the bridge offer scene is really not impressive. The hull is much lower than the fleet version, which is really sad. And if you're looking at the stats here, 1.375 versus 1.485 of the Fleet Ambassador and of the Fleet Guardian, which is much older. This came out like with Delta Rising, so just for comparison, this came out with Delta Rising, which is really old. The Ambassador, the Fleet Ambassador stuff came out. This is like after Victory's Life came out, like right before the Discovery ships started showing up. After Victory's Life. This came out with the History Will Remember trade such. Much later, slightly different bridge officer seat and a commander specialist seat here, but they both serve basically similar roles. Slightly different looks as well, but you definitely can see the similarities between these two ships here. And with this ship, Lieutenant Commander Command isn't really a huge jump with this, especially considering other legendary ships we have in the game. Now look, I can understand in some senses what Commander Temporal Operative and Lieutenant Commander Command would do for you, because that would allow you for recursive shearing 3 plus being able to have Concentrate Firepower 3 available on your starship, which is a great combination, mind you. And it would be great as a legendary ship if we didn't already have ships that could pretty much do that already. The legendary Glenn from the last legendary bundle, I've mentioned that bundle so much in this video already, already has Commander Temporal Operative Lieutenant Commander Command with an extra Lieutenant Commander tactical seat. And so in my mind, I'm like, if I'm going to do a torpedo boat, would I really want to use the legendary Ambassador, or would I rather just use the Glenn from the last legendary bundle, which even Kale's going to mention in a quote later in this video that is a better deal anyway. And this ship even has an extra tactical console. Yes, it's down 2 weapons because it's a regular science vessel. I think it's, if you're going to do a torpedo boat, I think the legendary Glenn is just a better ship. And for those of you that are like, oh, it's temporal plus command, so therefore you have 2 extra specialist heals. Well, guess what? Because of how the bridge officer works on Legendary Ambassador, you basically are going to want to use emergency powered weapons and reversal polarity in there. And this basically has to be tactical, which means you only have really the actual potential to have 5 whole heals on the Legendary Ambassador. Which, guess what? It's also the potential on the Legendary Temporal Flight Deck Carrier, which has the same amount of bridge offer seats, a higher hull and shield ratio, a 5-3 layout, able to use dual cannons, and has 2 hangar bays. And is faster. And is from the other legendary bundle. As I said in that last bundle from last year, I was surprised that Cryptic gave us a starship this powerful in that bundle. I know some people are not impressed by the starship, but especially with the support carrier thing that came out last fall with the new support frigates that can be used on flight deck carriers, it makes this ship an even stronger tank inside the game. So if you're going for tanking, the legendary flight deck carrier from the last bundle basically does more than what the legendary Ambassador does. If you're going for torpedo builds, the legendary Glenn, in my opinion, is going to do more for you than what the legendary Ambassador is going to be doing for you. So then it comes down to the fact of like, why does the Ambassador have the stats that it has here? Well, in my opinion, they're trying to have a reminiscent starship of the promo Temporal Light Cruiser, which has the exact same hull, very similar shields. This is 4-4 instead of the 5-3 on this ship. Same impulse and basically same inertia. Lower Turn, Maritime Temporal Operative, Lieutenant Commander Science, Lieutenant Commander Universal Command, and this ship has Lieutenant Commander Tactical and an extra tactical console, while this ship has one less tactical console and it's Lieutenant Tactical, Ensign Universal instead of the Lieutenant Commander Tactical. So yes, by the way, in a sense, the promo Temporal Light Cruiser has a similar type of damage potential as the legendary Glenn when it comes to a torpedo build. In some ways, and even higher damage potential because it's got, you know, more weapons. But again, the Glenn is an account unlock starship, and you can do science stuff on it too. You don't have to do a pure torque build with this ship. But just me ranting here. If you're going for, again, if you're going to go for the utmost, I want Temporal in Command because I want the most, you know, tankiest starship ever. Yes, Temporal in Command give you that potential. The starship to do that in is going to be the Enterprise J and its Klingon and Romulan equivalents. For me personally, I like to have access to a cloak and to cruiser commands, which is why I put, if I was going to choose any of those three different variants, I would choose the Klingon version, which is why I have the Durgath Heavy Temporal Dreadnought Battle Cruiser here. Yes, the Romulan version gets a battle cloak, but it loses its cruiser commands. The Enterprise J has a smidge higher shields, but it doesn't get a cloak. For me, the Durgath has the best of both worlds here. Yes, its impulse is crap, but it's got great base stats here. Otherwise, it's only 4/4, so you have to do broadsiding with this thing. But this is a starship that you could do a broadsiding fireball tank build with 6 whole heals. You don't get to use merge part of the engines if you're going to do 6 whole heals, but you could do 6 whole heals on this starship and actually have a reasonable broadsiding tank build on this starship. And it's like one of the only tanks that can in the game that can really do this. So, just saying, it is an interesting starship nonetheless. It's why in the comment section of one of the last videos, I mentioned this ship in the comments. I didn't think it was a good ship, but it's a fun meme ship if I actually happen to eventually get it for my KDF ult, for my meme, like the kid character. But anyway, that's basically it for the Starship Comparisons aspects of it. Now to get into the Starship traits. Again, these are the 4 old traits. I've talked about the Burrell's Wuthering Barrage trait. There's like 9 different sources of places to get this trait right now inside the game, including a free option right now with the KDF recruitment. So if you haven't started a KDF recruit, go ahead and start. This is one of the best energy build traits in the game, frankly. It's a best in slot trait for Cannon Scatter Volley builds. So just start a KDF recruit. Even if you aren't gonna immediately do the whole event, just start one and play through the tutorial. That's all you really need to do, and it's going to be a good investment for you in the long run. The vor'cha and the Enterprise C give you History Will Remember, which is a best in slot tanking trait. And then the Enterprise B's traits improve weaponized emitters and target that explosion. I'm not particularly impressed with either of those things. Just going to throw that out there. Not very impressed with them. As for the new traits, I'm going to go trait by trait with these. I got some critiques about it last time, so I'm going to go trait by trait. The Burrell's trait, Deadly Appearances. Whenever you decloak, you get a massive increase to shield penetration and to weapon haste. You also get that bonus if you're under the if you're under an enhanced battle cloak. You also get that shield pen and weapon haste. Downside, of course, is that while you're under an enhanced battle cloak, you can't fire regular energy weapons. You have to use just torpedoes. There are 3 situations where I see this could be a potentially OP starship trait. Option number 1, the shield pen is super powerful. If it's a super powerful shield pen starship trait, then it's going to be a best in slot torpedo trait. for Starship to have a battle cloak in general. Because then you can just decloak and have that shield pen. Also, potentially, if that haste also lowers the recharge times of torpedoes, then this would also be a best in slot trait, because then you can use an enhanced battle cloak, have this trait, and basically have an account unlocked cheaper version of ceaseless momentum, which is a trait which is stupidly hard to find right now inside the game. You basically have to go. You almost feel like if it hasn't like left the exchange yet, it's probably going to in the near future, and you're gonna have to go to private trade channels to find this starship. I have one character with this trait on KDF's side. I'm probably never gonna have any more KDF captains with this trait. It's sad. Option number 3, of course, which is another one which I don't see happening. If for some reason Cryptic coded the enhanced battle cloak wrong, and it's just any type of battle cloak that's better than regular battle cloak and better than regular Romulan battle cloak, and if it includes stuff like the Voth battle cloak and the Scimitar battle cloak, then that weapon haste would be, and if that weapon haste is actually good weapon haste, this could be really, really nice on the Scimitars, because the Scimitars have a console which can allow you to fire all weapons while cloaked. So if this weapon haste shield pen works for the Scimitar, with the Scimitar's special battle cloak, this could potentially be OP and put the Scimitars back into the meta. If that's actually the case, Cryptic would probably nerf it and remove that, because I don't think they want the Scimitars to be meta, because the Scimitars are C-Store starships. Now, if they actually made a promo Scimitar that's a Miracle Worker Scimitar, then they might actually do that. But I don't see it in the near future. Outside of those situations, this is probably going to be a situational trait. Unless the stats are really, really high, I do not see this trait creeping into the meta. Just going to throw that out. Now, the vor'cha trait, a good day to die. Every second, whenever you get damaged, you get an extra stack to this. This can stack up to 10 times. I think that the trait said it lasts for 15 seconds. So if you're constantly getting damaged every second, you will keep the traits that stacks up just fine. Every stack gives you a bit of extra healing and a bit of extra damage. The important thing is the healing, and there are a bunch of other healing traits in the game. For us to be in the same realm of healing as the other ones, in my opinion, to be better, it needs to be at least 3% healing per stack and 3% damage per stack. If it's not at least 3%, this is going to be a garbage trait and one to completely ignore inside the game. Because guess what? We have a free trait, and a free trait, and a free trait, and a legendary starship trait that all do healing for you. So, actually, this is a healing console, sorry. Not trait, but there's a lot of ones that are cheap or in the same realm of pricing. It's just improved Atomic Officer that is a single character trait, but it's bonus healing and makes Atomic Officer really, really, really nice. So that one is completely understandable in that realm. So if that healing percentage is really high, then it could be potentially good. Cryptic is hesitant on making a super strong healing trait, because if they make it too strong, then we turn starships into full-on bruiser tanks that just survive completely through dealing damage rather than actually, having resistances at all. So Cryptic doesn't want that. Cryptic wants a balance for tanks. And this could just make it way too powerful if that's the case. The Enterprise Beast trait is actually much more interesting. Captain and engineering abilities give you extra max HP and extra damage resistance that can stack up to 3 times. This can be a potential replacement for the Honored Dead trait if this gives you at least 10% max HP per stack and at least 50 damage resistance rating per stack. If it's giving you less per stack than that, this is a garbage trait and to ignore altogether. If they give stacks that are better than this, this could potentially become a meta tanking trait that's even better than Honored Dead. Because Honored Dead just gives you extra hull regen and extra damage resistance per stack. Because of how the Endeavor system keeps on being expanded, with giving you extra hull regeneration with more of those stacks and such, we could get to the point where we don't need traits to give you hull regen in the future, or traits to give you a ton of damage resistance, but traits that give you extra maximum HP would still scale linearly and still be more useful for us. I imagine in the future, because damage resistance has a non-linear, where it has a curveball, stuff like max HP, it's just a flat linear line when it comes to extra survival for your ship as well as temporary HP. Max HP is going to be much more valuable for us than something like extra hull regeneration. Because of course, extra max HP can also give us extra hull regen because of the Merc Worker specialization. So max HP is already going to give us extra regen, just inherent of the way it is. Plus, we get extra ability to survive spike damage with it too. If you're looking for traits other than Honored Dead, Intruder Discouragement is a nice alternative. You're able to just get stacks through doing crits instead of having to rely upon taking damage post resistance, which is a big deal because Honored Dead stacks, that cumulative damage doesn't always, that post resistance damage doesn't always count against temporary HP. So keep that in mind. Honored Dead has some situational weaknesses if you're going to be stacking tons of temporary HP, which is more and more common nowadays. There are a couple of PvP-oriented traits as well. One of them is technically account unlocked if you get the Racing Corvette either through Mud's Market or if you got it through the last event like a summer or two ago. Also keep in mind there is plot armor, P-L-O-T, plot armor from the legendary Temporal Flight Day Carrier, which in my opinion, in basically all maps outside of Hive Onslaught Elite, is a very suitable account unlock replacement for Honored Dead. If you're going to do Hive Onslaught Elite, you need a better damage resistance trait than plot armor. Basically every other map, plot armor is a suitable replacement. Just going to throw that out there. And this trait is from last year's anniversary bundle. Cool. Enterprise Siege trait, Lost in Time. This is a weird trait. I don't know what's going to happen with this one. When your HP drops to a certain threshold, when I was doing this recording, they didn't say what the threshold was. I'm hoping it's 75% HP. If this is actually going to be good. If it's 25%, this is if it's 50% or 25%, this is going to be a horrible trait. I hope it's 75% HP, because what that would mean is, if it's 75% HP and this partial displacement does not clear a threat, this trait basically becomes enhanced Tippler cylinder for tank captains. Because science tank captains can't use enhanced Tippler cylinder really for their tank builds because you become untargetable for 7 seconds. As a tank, not being able to be targeted for 7 seconds is a really big deal. Okay, that's a really big deal. But if Cryptic is giving us an extra trait that potentially can give us something like temporal backstep, but without the downsides of not being able to, so you can still be targeted while you're getting some benefits like it, that could be interesting. If it's going to be something more like Invincible, where it's like you can't be targeted or can't be killed essentially for a few seconds while you go below a certain threshold, and this only triggers once every couple of minutes, look, then this is going to be a terrible trait. It's just what it comes down to. It's either going to be super awesome or super terrible. And that's why I'm not going to really value this trait at all. I don't know which way this trait's going to go. It's, in my opinion, it's going to probably be one way or the other. I imagine check the SGO builds wiki or builds Reddit over the next couple weeks to see what the outcome of this actually is, whether it's a meta tanking trait a meta DPS science trait, or whether this thing is just entirely garbage. We will see. We really will see over time. As for old consoles, most of these are garbage, frankly. They did mention that the Stealth Fighter set is getting a 3-piece bonus. I can't remember what a 3-piece bonus is, but these consoles are mostly terrible, so don't worry too much about them. The one that's actually noteworthy is the subspace jumper, especially if you're doing like a raider build and you don't know where the rear flanks of enemies are. You can do a couple of runs and use the subspace jumper on enemies that you don't know where their rear flank is, and you are teleported 3 kilometers behind the enemy, which means you're teleported 3 kilometers and behind them, and now you're facing their rear arc. So now you know exactly where the rear arc of the enemy is. There are a lot of guides out there for the popular TFOs like IC and HSC that give you the angles of where the rear arcs of all the enemies are inside the map. But if you're someone who likes to experiment through, actually doing the missions instead of just reading guides out there, this could be an option for you. Also keep in mind you can just get this from the Lithium store because this is an old console and it's useful on any Starship basically. The Enterprise B's traits or consoles are mostly garbage. I know I'm going to get some flack on this because the Tactical Maneuvering Matrix gives you extra damage and damage resistance and speed and turn and stuff. I get it. Some of you think this is basically a weaker version of the DPRM. My problem with this is not that the max stuff isn't good, but you have to have tons of enemies around you when you use this thing for this to actually be good. Need tons of enemies around you for this to actually stack up super high, which isn't going to be on every map, which means you're not going to get that huge value that you might want. And also this is just normal category 1 on damage. The DPRM is clicky as category 2 bonus damage. So bonus damage is much more valuable. Yes, it gives you some damage resistance. DPRM gives you bonus damage resistance on its clicky, which is much more important. And it's more damage resistance in general too, so it's going to be much more impactful. This isn't super great. There'll be other consoles that I would personally use instead of this console. Some of you might not have anything better. This might be something if you're going to use the Enterprise B. The Legendary vor'cha, the Ice Matrix, isn't that good. I think they're going to buff this thing a tad in terms of its damage. Whatever. It's not going to really change things too much. The Temporal Trajectory Shifter is the one good console in here, frankly. It is one of the budget haste consoles. It is a toggle against the enemy for extra haste. So once the enemy goes away, well, yeah, there are some potential issues with this trait. This is why when it comes to this console, there are better haste consoles. But this is not a bad console, it's just not a top tier console. That's what it just comes down to. There's better options, but it is a good console. Then of course the Enterprise C, unlike the vor'cha, just gets that console and nothing else. Okay, so now to the interesting part of the video. Welcome to the part of the video where you get to hear from salty CounterYolo. So for those of you that are interested in hearing that, you now get to hear that. There are a lot of things on Reddit about how people do not like this bundle. People upvote certain things to remind people that, hey, this bundle is not super great. This could be better. And Cryptic has not been super great about their marketing in terms of what things are actually going to be in a bundle like this one. Now, Kale did clarify in the Priority 1 podcast a day or two ago, I think. I don't know, time flies by a bit. One of the questions was asked was why this year's 4-ship bundle is only 1 bundle instead of 2, because last year had a 10 stars bundle and a 10 stars bundle with stuff. The text of the answer is right there. Feel free to pause the video and read it if you wish. I don't really feel the need to read that. And yes, there are a couple of things that I skipped out of Kale's answer. The link will be in the description. I think I might even put a little card in the video so you can actually click it and go to this exact point. I don't know if in cards if I can actually go to exact minute and second, or if it's just going to send you to the very beginning of the video. If it does send you to the very beginning of the video, just go to that 32 minutes point and you'll get to the question, no problem. My TLDR of it is basically the 10th anniversary 10 pack was underpriced. I agree. Perfect World Entertainment told Cryptic Studios and STO, guess what? You're going to make a legendary bundle at the 25,000 Zen price. As its starting point, it's only going to have 4 legendary starships in it. Make it work. And the devs counter and they're like, if it's now, because in their initial told, hey, we're going to do 2 bundles like last year. One is just going to be the 4 legendary starships at 25,000 Zen, and a higher price on with that plus extra stuff. And the devs are like, we don't think it'll sell with just 4 legendary starships. So, can we just combine them both for the 25,000 Zen price? And put the extra stuff in there too, so that it'll actually sell? And they're like, sure. If you think that's what it'll take, then fine, do it. But it's going to be 25,000 Zen for its lower price. And it's only 4 legendary starships. You can't do anything else with it. And so they just started stuffing a bunch of extra crap into it. They put in 2 tiers. They put 2 tier 6 coupons in there for the C-Store. They put a bunch of other single character crap in there. They put a couple of tier 6X tier 6X upgrades in there as well. And they recently added a bunch of flow buy as well. In terms of perspective of whether you should get this bundle or not. First off, if you only care about Space Barbie, if you don't care about the other crap in the bundle, if you're like, I don't care about price, I just want the cool new skins that are for each of the 4 starships, then nothing that I say is going to matter. And yes, if that's all you care about, then sure, go ahead and get the bundle. There's 4 new skins, and the vor'cha has access to the camera skins now too. So you've got an extra 2 skins alongside the new Kempex Kronos one to basically choose from for your vor'cha. There's your Space Barbie, shenanigans and to change around things for. There's a bunch of options there, so feel free. There's a lot of stuff there. I am slightly disappointed about, as I said a few times in this video, the Ambassador class is missing a couple of skins. So, yeah, there should have been more skins in there from a previous version. Just saying, it should have been in there. They made the time to put the camera skins as part of the vor'cha. The Ambassador should have gotten its other equivalent skins too. Now, perspective 2, I'm going to have 3 different perspectives of Zen value. Perspective 1 is for the average player. The average player sees tier 6 starships in the C-Store as worth 3,000 Zen each. The old legendary starships in the original legendary bundle, that was a 10 starship bundle, was valued at 3,000 Zen each, even though for the price, it was actually 6,000 Zen for their overall worth. Cryptic messed up, and you get to have value from it. So basically, if we're valuing it at the prices we did last time, the worth would be 9,000 Zen for these ships, and the sale price is 18,750, which means we would say that, hey, in the rest of this bundle, we would need to find 9,750 Zen worth of stuff in the rest of this, which debatably you can do if you care about single character only stuff. That's debatable. Version 2 is Cryptic's evaluation of this. Now, beyond the anniversary bundle, the rest of their legendary bundles were priced in this way. They released all their ships of line bundles at 6,000 Zen, in case for those of you that weren't paying attention to that. The reason why I've said in the past that those bundles are ripoffs is because those ships didn't give you a new tier 6, but they were still charging you 6,000 Zen for all of the old stuff of a previous starship. And they didn't give you anything else besides that. And so I was like, hi everyone, please don't get ships with the line bundles. Tell Cryptic, you should just give us a legendary ship instead. Give us a new ship with all the old stuff in it, so that it's fun. And then, hey, if we really want a fleet starship instead of that one for the stuff, then we can choose the fleet starship with our fleet, with our fleet modules that we get for free from tier 6 reputations. But also, the starship only legendary bundles were at a base of 6,000 Zen with a sale price of 4,500. This was just the mirror Dreadnought Cruiser. But that was pretty clear. Also, our two what is it? Our legendary starships that have a instant level 65 token in them were 12k Zen with they cut in half on sale. This being because a lot of people were looking at these starships being like, I don't care about the level 65 token. And so they'd be like, okay, the sale is 50% instead of 25. So you could basically ignore the 6,000 Zen level 65 token in it. And you're basically just paying full price for the starship and just not paying for the token. So that being said, it's pretty clear, in my personal opinion, that Cryptic is actually valuing these ships at 6,000 Zen, which, as I said last year, that is how much these ships are technically worth. Slight problems in how they're valuing it though, and I'll get to my point in just a moment. And so for Cryptic, they're like, hey, we have 4 legendaries in here, so therefore, hey, 60 bucks each. We'll introduce this at a 25% sale, so at 0.75, 75% of that means 45 bucks per ship times 4 ships, which means the sale price should be at 18,000 Zen. And then we add a little bit because, hey, we're including the full KDF access thingy as a pricing thing, and it's there. So 18,750. The problem is, historically for Cryptic, when you pay for more than one starship in a bundle, typically it means that you're paying for a couple starships at full price and a couple starships and they're at 50% off. It's the same way that in a lot of your 3 starship bundles, like if you could buy 1 starship for 3,000 Zen or 3 starships for 6,000 Zen. So you effectively be getting, you'd be buying 2 starships, get 1 for free, or you're basically buying 1 and getting those other 2 in the bundle at half off. And so that's where I'm going to be valuing this at, which means that this bundle's actual base price, if we're assuming that this is actually the way that it should be, with other historical bundles with discounts inside the base price, that you have 2 starships at full price, 2 starships at half price, which means you end up with a fair base price of actually it being 18,000 Zen instead of 24,000 Zen. Which, yes, I say 24 instead of 25 because there's an extra 1,000 tacked on to the bundle because of the cross faction flying thing. They added 1,000 Zen because of that. It should have been 24,000. So the fair base price is 18,000 or 19,000 if you want to include the cross faction flying. So then 25% off of that fair base price would bring it down to 13,500 Zen. And they're asking for 18,750, which means, in my opinion, based upon a fair sale price, the extra stuff they dumped into this bundle needs to be worth at least 5,250 Zen to you for this bundle to be worth it. But that's also assuming that all 4 of the legendary starships are worthwhile to you for that 13,500 Zen to be fully true there. Otherwise, that would also drastically decrease as well. Which means that the stuff they would definitely be needed to get much more overall value in there. Now, of course, it would be based upon like overall sale prices. there have been people on Reddit who have looked at this and had done their interpretations. If we do eyeballing for something like this, 2 tier 6 coupons and the tier 6 upgrades, it does pretty much get us there. So if both those things are viable to you, and all 4 of the legendaries are worthwhile to you, then technically this pack could basically be worth it. Not a great deal, but worth the price. Now, with that all being said, for me personally, because of course I always have a slide like this whenever I do legendary bundles like this, one of the downsides about this new ship, or the new ships in here, is that every single one of the ships in here are just fleet starships. And so, and yes, I messed up some of this grid stuff here. I'm slightly lazy to change this because I'm slightly disappointed in this bundle. But when it comes down to it, most of this stuff I could care less about with this bundle. The Burrell's not exciting. The Excelsior is not exciting. The Ambassador is not exciting. None of those new skins are exciting either. The only one that is interesting to me at all is the legendary vor'cha. And it's because it's pretty much the Section 31 battlecruiser, but a KDF look, and it's a count unlock. That's exciting to me. The Burrell trait might be good. The Excelsior trait probably will be decent, and the vor'cha has its old hit to remember trait in console. So the vor'cha is pretty much carrying the value of the whole bundle for me, and with one starship that's not even an exchange starship, trying to carry the weight of a whole bundle like this, and trying to charge in the same realm as a 10 starship bundle from last year, for me personally, and this is just me, is probably not worth it. Now, there are other people out there who will go into much more detail in terms of the intricacies and pros and cons about this bundle and in general. Joe and Stowe, I think, is one of the best ones. In fact, Cryptic has recognized him and given him stuff, as well as Timberwolf. They didn't give me stuff, so they obviously don't like me like they like them. You know, it just is what it is. But feel free to see his blog. His blog is really good. I only saw part 1, and he mentioned at the end of part 1 that he had part of his part 1 that just didn't save. So he probably is going to have at least 2 more parts talking about this legendary bundle, if not more than 2 parts, coming up pretty soon. As he gets more of those, I will include it in the description when I can. I'm going to be pretty busy this week. I am behind on some things for work, so it will probably not be updated quickly, but it will probably eventually get updated in the description. But the link to his website in general will be in the description too. And he will go into pros and cons for all that, because that's what he does, and he does a fantastic job with it. Again, for Pseudomath, this pack gets some traits and consoles. It's not super exciting. I mean, like, yes, each ship is different, but you can't buy the starships separately. And the way that comes down to it is that they basically priced it as 4 of your 6,007 legendary bundles. They put it all together, and they didn't really discount the fact that you're buying 4 separate legendary bundles, as 4 separate single starship legendary bundles, as one big legendary bundle. Instead, they just try to pack a bunch of extra stuff in it, when, in my opinion, a lot of the extra stuff on a lot of the other legendary bundles, like, if you put 4 of those together, you're going to probably get more than what you would have in this one. That's why they added the 500 low buy, so that it feels like it's more. But I still don't feel like that it's enough. And that's just a gut feeling. I've got this because I did this like last year too, but it's not particularly exciting. If you look at it, because the Ambassador has the same trading console as the vor'cha for its old stuff, this one doesn't even get up to the 6,000 Zen per starship worth like last year. So we're not even actually there with this bundle. And when you include tier 6 coupons, it's even worse when we're looking at per starship. If you include the 2 Caesar starships, and you're going to have 6 starships there. And if you had the low buy-in count as a 7th, it would be even worse than this. It basically gets you down to $45 or 4,500 Zen per starship. So as to conclude, before we get to the TLDW, I have 4 options to give to Cryptic. 4 different ways that Cryptic could get me to actually buy this bundle still. So this is my final rant for the video. If Cryptic did any of these 4 things, and these are 4 things that I can see them still possibly being able to do before this bundle launches. If Cryptic did any of these 4 things, I would buy the bundle. Option 1, change the vor'cha from a battle cruiser to a flight deck carrier. In my opinion, really the biggest advantage that the Section 31 battle cruiser has is that because of the swarm mode, it's almost like it has pseudo hangar pets helping it out. So if you made the vor'cha into a flight deck carrier, it also gets 2 hangar bays. So it becomes even more equivalent to that ship in terms of damage. And because of 2 hangar bays, you can make the ship into a tank as well, with using one of these support frigates from a fleet support carrier and adding that frigate to this ship. Again, this would also make it so this would be our first main faction modern flight deck carrier inside of Star Trek Online. Because sure, we've got the Tellarite ship, we have the Orion Blackguard ship, we have the Suvan Silk ship, but we don't have a starship that's actually like feels Federation, Klingon, Romulan, or Dominion that's actually a flight deck carrier you got inside of the game. They could change the vor'cha into this, and you could do that, and it could be a parody to the Miracle Worker D7 flight deck carrier, being like, yeah, but this is a count and lock, and it's flipped of Commander Miracle Worker instead of that one, which is Miracle Worker Command. It could be a nice parody, and it has base 4 tactical consoles anyway, so it would actually have the same amount of tactical consoles as the Miracle Worker flight deck carrier. So for me, this would actually be worth it enough to buy the whole bundle. Another option would be account lock duty officers. The Delta Rising pack actually had a couple of duty officers in it, and a couple of bridge officers that are really nice. So being able to have a couple of duty officers that, because this feels more like a tank pack than anything else, having a couple of duty officers that are count unlock that make tanking much easier and much more affordable could be really nice. Adding the reverse shield polarity duty officers in there, adding a Daku Khan, maybe some Christian Verdi officers that are freely account unlock reclaimable, would be a big boon to this as well. This would go much more farther than adding like promo boxes or loot boxes with master keys. This would be way more valuable and would be worth it enough for me to buy this, because reverse shield polarity duty officers, those are normal, especially on KDF side. I'm looking at over 100 million energy credits to get one of those from one character. So yeah, and I've got several KDF tanks. So being able to have that freely reclaimable would be very nice too. And it's not that much effort to do this. Additionally, although it would take a little bit more effort, account unlock space and ground traits. This has not ever been done before in Star Trek Online. If you're wanting some of these better space and ground traits, you have to go to the exchange or open loot boxes. And so guess what? For those people that avoid loot boxes like the plague, guess what? They have terrible space traits, terrible ground traits, because there's not that many great ones in the game right now that are just free. And there's no other options to really get extra space and ground traits besides the R&D system. And those are that and the fleet, and those are debatably slightly better. Well, besides particle manipulator, which that one is super good for science builds. But besides that one, there's not any like super OP great traits, because you have to go to loot boxes to get the better ones. Additionally, if you wanted to add maybe a starship trait count unlock that's not actually from a starship, Attack Power and Delta Prime is a fantastic option there too as a candidate. Of course, lastly, if you want to have an account unlock something from the Low-Buy store, why not account unlock Bio-Neuron Infusion Circuits? Maybe you still have to upgrade this thing, but being able to freely claim this thing on all of your characters on your account without having to spend Low-Buy, that would be a huge benefit to the community. That's also be another thing that I think would be big enough for not only me, but probably for a lot of other players to be like, hey, instead of 500 Low-Buy, something like this for a console that most endgame builds use. Even endgame tank builds will use something like this because it's the best crit severity console in the game right now. This would add a ton of insane value to the bundle. Right now, unfortunately, Cryptic has decided to just add a bunch of single character stuff to the bundle, which at a certain point is going to run out and people are going to forget about it. And people are going to probably have lots of regrets about this bundle. Add stuff like this? People are going to recommend this bundle. Be like, yeah, the ships aren't great, but I mean, I can't unlock Bio-Neuron Infusion Circuits. Come on. That would be amazing. Like, I'm just saying. People would talk about it on Reddit and how awesome that would be. Just throwing it out there, Cryptic. Feel free to take it. So yeah, for TLDW, the 11th anniversary mech bundle, also known as the 2021 anniversary Starship bundle, only has 4 legendary starships. It also has 2 C-Store coupons, some Tier 6XX upgrades, and then a bunch of single character only stuff. It has a base price of $250 or 25,000 Zen, on an initial sale price of slightly under 18,000, slightly under 19,000 Zen, basically. Each of these new 4 legendary starships give you a new trade and skin. There are 2 KDF and 2 Federation. Because of a cross-faction unlock thing built into this bundle, you do not need to worry about any pure KDF getting to level 65 for your Federation captains to fly the KDF ships and vice versa. There aren't any single starship purchase options yet for this. Perhaps in the future that might be the case. In my opinion, for the starships themselves, the legendary vor'cha is the big standout. It's pretty much a KDF skinned version, a counterlock version of the promo pack Section 31 Heavy Battlecruiser. The difference being that the vor'cha has got a battle cloak, while the Section 31 ship only has a standard cloak. Commander Science for the vor'cha versus Commander Engineering for the Section 31 ship, and that the Section 31 ship has swarm mode, while the vor'cha does not have that, nor any hangar base. So the vor'cha has a bit of a disadvantage, but it is an account unlock starship, while the Section 31 ship is a single character ship. So they each have their distinct advantages. The legendary Burrell is a disappointing 4-2 raider. The one advantage it has is that the Fleet Burrell requires Tier 5 Fleet Military, which especially on KDF side is not quite as common as it is on Federation side. It's just the way that it is, which means if you're wanting a full endgame statted Burrell, it's much harder to get, and therefore there might be some merit to getting the legendary bundle here, even though its stats aren't super spectacular. There are many raiders that are better than this thing, but if you're wanting those looks and want a full end statted one, Tier 5 military is not necessarily the easiest thing to find. As for the other 2 ships in here, the 2 Federation ships in this bundle, the Miracle Worker Excelsior, in my opinion, the Caesar Klothos, or the Miracle Worker Sovereign from the last year's Mega Bundle, that's also Miracle Worker Pilot, and in terms of its seating, does most of what the Excelsior is going to be doing. The Legendary Temporal Ambassador is also another fairly formidable ship. In some ways, it is a smidge better, but for something like this in a bundle, that smidge better bridge officer for the fact that they're both Commander Temper Operative, in my opinion, makes it so negligible that for the pricing, it's not really worthwhile to really talk about too much. keep in mind for all of these ships, for those of you that skip to the end of the video instead of watching the comparisons part, I do have comparisons of there versus other starships so that you can judge for yourselves instead of my opinionated stuff here at the end of the video. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. I am going to be doing some ranty videos in the future in terms of some potential starship ideas for Cryptic, because in my biased opinion, it's pretty clear that they're running out of creative ideas for their starships, and there are a lot of starship ideas that they are neglecting right now in terms of their starship subtypes. So I'm going to be doing a video or two saying, hey Cryptic, here's a couple of starship types that you're neglecting and starships specialization combinations that you're completely overlooking right now for some weird reason. So I'll be having videos like that, and I'll probably in the next couple of months probably start talking about the lore stuff as well inside of the game too. We will see how things go. Anyway, thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.